Get excited because we are getting on with Hollywood looks, and what better way to start this off than creating Hobbs and Shaw and John Wick looks. So let's go. Here's the first shot. So I'm gonna try to create this feel vibe over this shot, okay? And you might think like what the hell I was thinking, but just bear with me and I'm gonna give you a sense. The reason why I chose sort of like a difficult shot is to give you a sense of what teal and orange is all about and how it's transforming. And it's not as crazy and as pushed as, let's just say back in the day a transformer sort of thing. Like now it's just a lot more subtle, and like look at how the skin tones are so natural, but it still has that cool Hollywood, like, just look at the green in the back, and that's sort of just a subtle teal, but it's not as much on the green side, and that's what we're going to be. It's more like on the cyan side, a little bit on the blue side, and that's what we're going to be creating, and you can even see that in this shot too. So let's get going, and this will basically be killing two birds with one stone, because I was going to show you how to create a teal and orange look, so we're going to be accomplishing that in this one as well. So I'm going to start off with dialing everything in, and let's just go. So what I'm noticing here, what I'm looking at is this to this. I want to match this to that right away. And first of all, let's just dial everything in, right? So it's really interesting. Look at this shot and look how everything is sitting. It's like all the way down here. This is what I was trying to tell you. This is where the juice happens, okay? So look what I'm going to do. I'm going to dial this in a little bit. I'm going to bring my highlights down. Bring my gain down. I'm going to raise my lift up a little bit, and then I'm going to start adding contrast. And I'm going to lift my gamma up a little bit just to give it a little bit more. And then I'm going to bring my gain down just to keep everything nice and juicy. And bring my... Actually, let me look at this. Let me get rid of that and look at my contrast. And I think the contrast needs to be crushed a little bit more. So what I'm going to do at that point is just use my log wheels to just bring it down to like where Hobbs is sitting. And something like that. Just raise it a little bit. And we're sitting in a pretty good spot. And now what I want to do is, while we're in our log wheels, I'm going to take my highlights and raise them just a little bit, not too much. Okay, so let's look at that. And contrast wise, I think we're getting in the ballpark. I mean, I'm gonna turn this open effects off, and contrast wise, you can see it right here. Things are starting to look pretty even, normal. Now, one thing that we can see is that we need that green instead of this that we got going on, which is sort of like a pinkish tone throughout the entire scene. So it's going to be accomplished by using my lift, and I'm going to drag them toward that green. And then I'm going to take my gain and take it toward a little bit of that orange and magenta, and I'm gonna just keep playing with my lift and then magenta, and I'm gonna park it somewhere around here. So now if we look at it, so I mean, just picture this shot like we cut from this to this, and we're getting there. So what it needs is, let's try some saturation. So I'm going to add some saturation and see what that does. So that definitely helps. Now, one thing that I do want to play with is, you know, a little bit more lift, and I'm going to just take it a bit exaggerated toward that green. And then take my magenta and keep it somewhere around there. So now look at it. I mean, just check this out. Like, I mean, just one node. Just look at that. I mean, we're literally working off of just one node. Let me just go to the start and look at how nice it looks. Just look at his skin. His skin is already looking in the ballpark. It's looking really, really nice. Now, if I park it right here and look at it, one thing that I am noticing is that we have to work on our shadows a little bit more to really balance it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my lift and move it. I just moved my lift a little bit so like the black pants look black, and then I took my gamma and I moved it toward that green because we got to keep that green where it is. And then I'm going to take my gain and I'm going to move it towards red and orange. And now if we look at it, I'm going to take my gamma and I'm going to move it more towards green. And then I'm going to take my gain and I'm going to move it towards, like, basically I'm just like focusing on this highlights, and I'm focusing on that and I'm moving that there. And then I'm going to take my lift and just really bring it somewhere where it's just making sense. And then bring it down a little bit, you know. So somewhere around here is really, really good. I mean, just look at that. He might be looking out the street toward that sign. So just one node, guys. So this is your modern teal and orange. You don't really have to go crazy and create it with, like, there's so many different ways that you can go about that look, but I'm all about keeping your image pristine and how to just keep everything intact. Our image doesn't break one freaking bit, and that's what's happening here. It's not breaking at all. I mean, this was shot with Sony FS7, and look at the detail. I mean, have you ever seen this much detail pulled out from FS7? I mean, look at the hotel sign, all these lights. You can almost see the lights there, and we were able to keep all of that just by one node. So at this point, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, I mean, even down to the contrast, to be honest, because I'm looking right here and here, this is really good. This was just one node. I wanted to give you guys an example of how simple it really can be to just get it in there and dial in these colors just using our primaries wheels. Just look at that. So just you're going to be able to see these, like what I did, micro adjustments, that's it, and some saturation, and we were able to create enough pull to create this really, really cool look. I mean, even if you look at him, his jacket is matching our dude here, Jason Statham, and then the blacks are pure black. And guys, we were able to create it. I mean, even if you look at it right here in our scopes, we nailed the look in freaking one node. Now what I would do, I would just clean up and do a couple of things, right? So I would just create a prior node and clean it up a little bit, not too much. So I'm just going to do something like that, and I'm going to go in and do our basic cleaning, but I don't want to do too much because I feel like it's taking a bit much from that. So let me just go back here. Yeah, that was taking too much. So I'm still gonna use my chroma cleanup, but then the rest I'm just gonna leave it as is. Another thing that I want to do is I just want to go in here and add, I want to add glow and see if it does anything. I mean, sometimes it'll just like just look at, it's softening that up, so I'm going to leave that on, and then I'm going to go in and add grain because these movies have quite a bit of grain, and I'm just going to take that and I'm going to crank this up, and that's really cool. Yeah, so that is really cool, simply created, and honestly, we didn't even need these two nodes. We were done with these two right there, but we still went ahead and created just a, added some noise reduction and added some grain and some glow just to give it some final touches, but that's it. So that's our first look, and it's a really nice look. Now we're gonna move on. Okay, now I'm gonna go to this shot right here, and I'm gonna try to create this look here, and it's going to be very challenging, and I picked that shot for that reason, to challenge myself, because look at the environment. This environment right here, it's all lit with fluorescent lights, and that color is in there built in, and then obviously they pull the skin out, but then the rest is living in that space, whereas we have to create that. This is not what it is here. So I'm just going to pull this open on the side. So here we are. Let's get going. I'm gonna bring my lift down. I'm gonna raise my gamma. I'm gonna raise my gain. And I'm gonna bring my gamma down, and I'm gonna start giving it some contrast. Now these blockbuster movies just have a ton and ton of contrast. You can see where everything lives. Like most of it is right here, but then just look, it just top and bottom heavy. So I'm gonna bring it down. I'm gonna bring my gamma up. I'm gonna bring my gain down a little bit, more contrast. Park it somewhere around here. Lift my gamma up a little bit. Gain up a little bit. Okay, so now I want to take my gamma and bring it down just to get it in the ballpark. Okay, so if I take my gamma and bring it down, that kind of, I'm trying to put myself I'm trying to create some separation here, okay? So I'm gonna take my gain and go toward that magenta-ish situation a little bit. And then I'm gonna take my gamma and go in the opposite direction. Do it a little bit more, and now I'm gonna give it some saturation. So I'm gonna take it around 65. That's enough saturation to start seeing some color separation, and that's good. Now I'm going to take my lift and bring it down just to kind of create that look that we have in Hobbs and Shaw. And then I'm going to bring my gamma up a little bit, and then I'm going to keep pushing that look. I'm going to bring my gamma up to counter that look. I'm going to take my gain and just move it to a neutral spot. Let me see if I can add some more color somewhere around here. Let's move back on color a little bit, somewhere around here. So I'm going to leave it around 67-ish. So for now, I am going to be leaving it. We started here, we ended up here. And for now, I want to leave it for my primaries right there. And then let's just go in and select his skin. So I'm going to turn that off. And let's go ahead, grab his skin. And what we will need to do is we will need to qualify just the middle section, because that's where he's standing. Because ultimately, I don't want this, I don't want that. But let's try something. So I want to see how we can get rid of. Yeah, that's not going to work. So we need to do this, and then we need to do that. Okay. So this works, kind of. I mean, we're kind of getting into his skin a little bit. So it has to be that, and then let's just go in and make some changes, and then if we have to isolate this, we can. But first of all, my goal is to just give him some life. So I'm gonna bring him up a little bit and then start adding some warmth into his skin tone, and then we're taking it this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna use my gain to add that magenta-ish, like I already am adding that, and then I'm gonna take my gamma and I'm gonna add warmth, and it will also play as like a blend-in point. And I think this, for our environment, is looking pretty good, and honestly I like what it's doing here too. So for now I'm gonna leave it, but I will play it through and just make sure that there's nothing nasty happening. So nothing is happening, we're good. Now what I want to do is I want to create a parallel node, and I want to select these areas right here, and I want to select this right here, and obviously it's gonna select a bunch of other stuff that we don't want, so I'm gonna try to limit that. Hold on, so let's see what we can do. Alright, let's just grab it from the top again. I'm gonna select that and then try to get some of that. And we definitely don't want him, so we're gonna try to do this. I'm gonna blur it out quite a bit. And then let's just add some color and see what happens. So one thing that I want to do is I want to go in my color boost and pull it down. Pull it back and you'll see what it does. Actually, I don't know if we want to even do that. So I'm going to cancel that and start adding this blue right here, this greenish blue. So let's reset these and then do it again. I'm going to start with my gamma. And now I'm using my gain. And I think it's doing quite a bit, to be honest. And one thing that I want to just make sure is, okay, so that's looking really, really nice. I mean, just look at this. So this is coming along quite a bit. Again, guys, we're using this as an inspiration at the end of the day, and then we're building on top of that. So it put us in a really nice spot, but that doesn't mean that literally every single thing needs to be duped. We're just going for getting in the ballpark and then creating our own flair. So the skin might be too much. Like if the skin is just too much for you, then you can obviously go in here and I can just pull some saturation out. So I'm going to do that. Something like that. And for this particular example, I mean, I'm really happy with it. I am really happy with it. And I think we were able to create enough separation. And just look at the shirt right here, the shirt right there, skin, this, like the background, like we were able to create a lot of it and by not many nodes at all. And now where we are, we can do a couple of different things. So one thing that I will do is I will add some sharpness and then I'll go in and add my film grain. And you know what? I want my saturation back. It was nice. So that right there is pretty good. It's not the exact same match, so if we really do want to go in that world, we can start bringing some blue into the skin. Like something like that. And now we're this is where we started, and then this is where we are. Let me just reset a couple of them. I mean, we can leave it there. I'm not really happy with that because yes, to go in this world, it kind of works, but for me, I like to have his skin somewhere around here, you know? Alright, so that is that. And now we're gonna go to the next shot where we are pretty much gonna start off by copying this grade, and then we're gonna make some changes because not everything is gonna copy over. So I'm gonna go right here and then see what is copying over and then play it through. And we have to fix the key a little bit, and that's just gonna be the case always. So I can leave that in and then just go close that. The main goal is to grab his skin more than anything else. So as long as we have his skin, we're good. And then let's reduce that. Alright, so I don't want to take it from him that much, so I'm gonna do this, and then hue is looking good, and then let's go to the luminance. Let's look at this, and then we will work on it and perfect it, and whatever needs to be done, we will deal with it. But right now, what I want to do is take it a little bit more towards magenta, something like that. Leave it somewhere around there, and we can bring it back a little bit. I mean, I think it might be a bit too bright, so that's better. Now I'm gonna go here and see what's happening in this and then clean it up. So let's move it around a little bit. And what do we need to do? Alright, so let's see what's happening. Alright, so if this magenta is getting to be too much for you, like, we can pull it back a little bit. We can just pull it back a little bit, so something like that. I mean, it's still there, and let's not forget that we're in a completely different environment, so that's that. And then that's given us this situation right here, but we can move it a bit more towards that green. So now we're getting that for sure everywhere. So now we're getting that, like all of that in. We added sharpness, we added grain, and now one more thing that we can do is add some extra pop, extra contrast. So I'm going to try to do that. I'm going to raise my lift, I'm going to bring my gain down, and I'm going to give it more contrast. And then I'm going to lift my gamma. And just look how nice it looks. We just gave it so much more life. And then if I play it through, like, just look, we gave it so much life just by a little bit. And that's what happens in movies. Like, look, this is where we started. Let's play it through. This is where we ended up. And if I get rid of this and make this bigger, play it through before and then after. Guys, I mean, this is a billion times better than creating a freaking LUT. You know what I'm saying? We're just creating these looks on the go, and we're creating really hot looks. We're creating movie looks on the go, even when some things weren't even shot with that intention. So moving along, we did Hobbs and Shaw. Now we're going to move on to John Wick and a couple of looks. I'm going to start off with this one, and then we're going to go to the next John Wick look. So this one is super cool, and let's just jump right in. So we're going to start off with our contrast. I'm going to bring my lift down. I'm going to raise my gain a little bit. I'm going to raise my gamma a little bit, and then I'm going to start adding contrast. And then I'm going to go in my log wheels, and I'm going to pull it down a little bit more to like really crush it how it is crushed in John Wick, and something like that. And then I'm going to come out of my log wheels, and then I'm going to start dialing it in. So what I'm seeing is that it's basically, let's do this again. I'm going to create a new node. I'm going to go into my curves. I'm going to pull my blue and pull it down. So look, let's suck the blue out of it a little bit, somewhere around here. Then we're going to go to red and pull that down. And now we're creating that sky. Now if I take my blue and just kind of play around with it, not so bad. I can keep it somewhere around here. Now let's go to magenta and see what we can do. Magenta is going to come in handy to keep these buildings clean, but then we got to keep moving the red and the blue to keep that look that we're going for. Let's park it somewhere around here, give it some saturation. So I'm gonna go up to 65-ish. And now what I want to do is I'm just gonna go to my lift gamma gain back in my primaries, and I'm gonna add some red in there, and then I'm gonna take my gamma and just start giving these buildings a nice color. So I'm focusing on the buildings and how clean the whites are. So that's my focus right now. And I think for that, we kind of have to go back in here and pull our, because this is where that is created. So I'm going to have to keep my magenta somewhere around here while I keep building my look here. And I think it's already starting to look pretty good. So I'm gonna play with my lift and gamma to really get the sky right. I mean, we're getting somewhere, I gotta be honest. So, I mean, let's just look at the scopes and kind of study the scopes. So one thing that needs to happen is this. I'm gonna create my primaries here, or parallel node. And what I'm gonna do is this. I'm gonna go in my qualifier and I'm just gonna select my highlights only, and then I'm gonna go back in here and I'm gonna pop them. So just go in gain and lift it. Kind of like that, and then give it some color. So I'm gonna give it some red, some nice colors. So we're giving it some pop right there. And let me go in my shadows and fix that too, because it's looking a bit too blue. So that's looking better. So now one thing that I want to do is I can go here and just go into my hue versus saturation, grab my blue and just pull it down a little bit. I can also go into hue versus hue and grab my blue and then move it around a little bit to see if we can, and we are. We started to get this blue that we were missing. And a lot of the times hue versus hue will come in handy for stuff like that. So just look at that. That came in clutch quite a bit. Now I have to say, I want to go back into my curves and see what else we can do to kind of make it a bit cleaner and bluer. So maybe I should take my blue and raise it. And I think that is doing it. And now I'm going to go back in here and keep working on my hue versus hue until we're getting very, very close to that. And I think we did it. Now if I just come here, hide this. Like we went from here, and this was shot with GH5, and we created this, and this is genuinely very, very close to what we're seeing here. And all it's missing is tons of grain. And we'll just drop a film grain, boom, and then give it some texture. And yeah, I'm gonna do this before, and then we're gonna do after. big difference. So there you go. And now we're gonna move on, and this is gonna be the same thing. Let's try to drop the same look here and see where we are. Pop these two open, and so I mean, obviously this shot is darker than this, so it's not gonna look like that. But other than that, we can see that one thing that we can do is just bring a little bit more blue in the lower mids. So I'm gonna move this over, and we're gonna go back in our curves and see what else we got here that we can mess with. So I'm gonna take my green and pull it up. Actually pull it down. And now I think we did it. I think we created that. Like, it's very much, I don't mean to do that. Hold on. Yeah, it started to look like one shot. I mean, come on, look at this. If I drop a 248, I mean, besides it's a different time of day, it started to look like the same shot. Yep. So there you have it. This is John Wick's first look, and now we're gonna move on. So I'm gonna actually reset this and move on to this shot, and it has that letterboxing, and I think we missed the last two shots had that letterboxing too. So if we want to fix that, we can grab these two shots, come down here, fill it, we're good. And then this one, same thing, we're gonna come here, fill it, we're good. All right, so this is gonna be extremely challenging. I mean, it's not shot with the same color temperature as the one here, so we're gonna have to do a lot of manipulation to get it there, and the image might break because just look at it. I'm gonna show you the image full screen, and you can see the noise in there without any LUT, and so it's going to be really hard. So one thing is for sure, we're not going to be keying anything out because that's just not going to work. It's going to be really nasty. We can do parallel mixer if we have to, but we might not have to, the method that I'm going to show you. So we're going to start off by dropping some serious noise reduction. And then what we can do is just leave it off for now so we can work. So let's dial in our contrast. I'm gonna go down here. I'm gonna pull my gamma up. I'm gonna pull my gain down. And then I'm gonna start adding some contrast. So I'm gonna pull my gamma up some more and my gain down. And add more contrast. Somewhere around there. So let's just say that's our contrast. Now I'm gonna go into my second node, and guys, the whole thing is gonna get created here using primaries, these two wheels, and maybe a little bit of this. So let's get going. I'm gonna take my gamma and take it towards this. So okay, that's one. So now we did that. Now I'm going to take my gamma and take it toward that green. And I'm going to take my gain and move it more towards that yellow. And I'm going to take my gamma and move it more towards that green. And now I'm going to take my lift and balance everything out. I'm just pushing my gain a little bit more, and on and off, on and off. And considering that we did not shoot for this and where we landed, and let's turn this bad boy on, and you know what, I'm gonna throw some glow on it. And then after that, I'm gonna throw a lot of grain on it. Check it out. Let's watch the before. Now let's watch the after. And now let's watch it together. So guys, you gotta agree, this is not bad for what we had to work with and where we ended up. And even the skin tones and everything, we're keeping it intact, because anything that was bright, we kept the colors, we kept the warmth, and we pushed it actually. And then we took our mids and shadows and we pushed it toward that green, and that's how it was created. If I go back and turn this node, the magic node, on and off, you'll see what we're doing. And it was all done using primaries. And now I hope you understand when I talk about and get so excited about the primaries. The power is insane. What you can do with it is insane. And that's the magic of the primaries. And this was John Wick look created using just the primaries. And now we're moving on to La La Land.